Broadcasting live from Valvagoth's lair on the plain of Duskmourn. This is TapTapConcede. Hello and welcome. Today, TapTapConcede is going to feature myself, Nelson, hi, as well as a Benjamin Wheeler.
Thank you for having me. All glory to Valgubov.
And we must thank our sponsor for the show, Card Kingdom. Please head on over to cardkingdom.com/Loading Ready Run or cardkingdom.com/LRR. One of those two is the affiliate link that lets them know we sent you, and you can get all of your individual card needs from them, card supplies, sealed product if you're in the US, if it's recent sealed product or older sealed product can be sent anywhere. And when you finish your order, put down in the description, write down LRR sent me button, please, and you'll get a little 1-inch button that currently says, why don't you? Nah, don't.
How about you, nah, don't?
We also need to thank everyone who has helped us out over at patreon.com/Loading Ready Run. If you haven't been there, that's one of our favorite ways to accept your financial contributions to our success. We really appreciate everything that we collect over there. Helps us keep lights on, pays for our little coffees, and, just generally helps us continue to do all the things that we do.
I brought my tea from home.
Yeah, but what money did you use to buy it with?
Twitch money, baby.
Oh, right. Well, check out Wheeler's Twitch, too.
There is another way that you can give us money.
There are more ways. It's true.
Yeah.
Let's think of another way together.
I mean, there's store.loadingreadyrun.com, but also...
That's a great way. That's a great way.
You could just come up to us at a Magic event and give us money.
Give us $5 when you see us at a Magic event. That's fine. That's okay. 20?
All the content we put out, better than 20.
No shame. Any amount of money you want to throw at us, no, don't throw it, sorry. At MagicCons is great.
Gracefully
hand. Yes, be dignified about your donation. We mentioned store.loadingreadyrun.com. We also, of course, have YouTube memberships and super thanks.
We don't actually need to do this part.
We have Twitch subs. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it.
Great.
So, hello. At time of recording, Duskmourn pre-release time is happening, right?
Yes.
Should be happening this weekend. We got to get in on a little bit of the early access event on Arena. So myself, James, and Graham all have played a little bit, and we've played the pre-release.
Yes.
So very small amount of Duskmourn limited exposure, but we can have some initial impressions. We were hoping to be joined by Cameron today. Unfortunately, couldn't make it, but Wheeler and I have played a little bit of this Magic set, and we can talk about it.
I've watched a reasonable amount of this Magic set as well, which is something that I'm more than happy to regurgitate and pretend like I have experience with.
Yeah, we're here today to continue the feedback loop of Magic content. We watch Magic content, and you watch us having watched Magic content, and now this is Magic content too.
Yep.
And we just, the building blocks just keep getting broken down and then put back together.
Mm-hmm. It's like React streaming.
Sometimes it's a castle, sometimes it's a spaceship, but, it's all Magic content. Okay, so I want to get out in front of it and say, so far, this limited set seems pretty aggro. There's uncommons in red and white that have 2 power that only cost 1 mana. And the other 1 mana cards that don't have 2 power are kind of decent. So, like, the cards I'm speaking of firstly are Norin, Survival something. Thank you. Swift Survivalist. So this is only an uncommon. And it even has like a beneficial ability in combat. If you're listening, 1 red mana for a 2/1 legendary creature, Human Coward. Norin can't block. And whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may exile it. You may play that card from exile this turn. So essentially, you can recast the attackers that you didn't want to have trade in combat with blockers. Which is kind of like, if you have a lot of creatures, it's kind of like reverse propaganda or something. Like, this ability is neat. It sort of reminds me of Reconnaissance, but it's a lot more expensive than that.
It's weirdo vigilance.
Weirdo vigilance, sure. Very expensive vigilance.
Yeah, but it comes with a lot of other, additional benefits where Obviously, you have to pay the mana again on some of these cards, but in the year of our Lord 2024, there are a lot of creatures that have enters triggers.
Well, that's what they're called now, I
Had
guess.
to cut off the battlefield, huh? Not going to hold... yep, won't let that one die. Much like Norrin. So you have these creatures that themselves have enter the battlefield triggers, but also just there's Eerie.
Yep.
So you have, like, if you get an enchantment creature returned, then replaying it is going to be pretty exciting. Get another Eerie trigger. But then just, like, being able to slam with everything and go, well, if they don't block my Survivor, then I get the Survivor triggered ability. But if they block my Survivor and it potentially could die, I could just return it to hand and maybe set it up again.
And to be clear, we mean the creature with a Survivor ability, which we'll get into soon.
Yeah, this card's a survivalist.
Survivalist.
It's not a survivor.
Not a survivor itself. Norrin hasn't ever survived anything, as far as we know, but he does practice survivalism.
Or has only ever survived, because I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be dead. Like,
right.
As far as age.
Oh, okay.
Like,
was he an old man back
well, he was in Time Spiral.
Yeah.
I mean, Time Spiral is, I think, canonically, like, thousands of years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, but did he hop through a time loop back then? Because there were those rifts or whatever.
I don't know.
Okay, we want the Norrin story, Wizards. And hey, if they've already published it and you know what the Norrin lore is, drop it in the comments. I want to read these Norrin comments. Tell me who Norrin is.
The Norrin lore?
The deep Norrin lore. We talked about the Vigilance, talked about rebuying ETBs with this card. That's all super cute and awesome if you get to see that happen in a game of Limited. Probably the Norrin player is crushing. Free value in Limited is usually good enough to kind of win the game. But and when I say free, I mean you're paying mana but not extra cards. But the main thing I see this card doing is just alongside other 1 and 2 drops and just making it really hard for your opponent not to take damage every turn.
Right.
Because your blockers just get recast.
Yep.
Or your attackers that get blocked get recast, I mean. So the number of creatures on the attacking side just keeps going up. In white, at uncommon, you have a creature with survival that's called...
Veteran Survivor.
Thank you, yes. Veteran Survivor, a 2/1 for 1 white, human survivor, with, at the beginning of your second main phase, if this is tapped, exile up to 1 target card from the graveyard, and as long as there are 3 or more cards exiled with Veteran Survivor, it gets +3/+3 and has hexproof.
That's pretty aggressive.
The good news is, most of the time that this thing's killing you, it isn't a 5/4. All those words on it are relevant, but in more games they're not relevant, if you take my meaning. Like the fact that it's a 2/1 for 1 and it attacks for 2 is the main thing going on with this card. So there's just a plethora of other 2 and 3 drops and pretty cheap removal in this set in those 2 colors, which is common. But that's what I ran into the most. Like that was my main impression, was in kind of Mardu. You can put together pretty aggressive decks. Like in black at common, there's Fear of
Missing Teeth.
Maybe. Which one's Fear of Missing Teeth? I'm thinking of the 1/1 for 1 that's like a Mog Fanatic.
That's the Fear of Missing Teeth.
Thank you. Yeah, so Fear of Missing Teeth is an enchantment, so it also works well in those decks because it's a cheap enchantment for Eerie triggers. But it's a 1 black for a 1/1 enchantment creature Nightmare. It says when it dies, it deals 1 damage to any target and you gain 1 life. And you might read this the first time like I did and think, oh, when it dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Yep.
Because you see, and you gain 1 life at the end, kind of tricks your brain into thinking like, oh, it's a drain for 1. No, it's much better than that. This is like Goblin Arsonist that also gains you a life. So Goblin Arsonist is like the new version of Mog Fanatic after they changed the damage on the stack rules, so you know, kids, back in the days of Tempest, you used to be able to attack a Mog Fanatic into a Grizzly Bears and trade, because you put damage on the stack and then sacrifice the Mog Fanatic before damage is resolved, deal the extra damage. Fear of Lost Teeth trades with 2/2s or X2s. So even though it only gets in for 1 when it attacks, this is still a pretty premium aggressive creature because it helps you develop a strong board on a very small amount of mana.
It's also a 1 mana enchantment creature, which is relevant because I was trying to find the name of cards. I gotta tell you, terrible scheduling decision to put me on this. Because I don't know the name of cards until like at least a week later. Because every card is just Oh, what's the black goblin arsonist or, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But as the consummate professional that I am, I have a very spicy, aggressive play that features another one drop.
Speaking of remembering names really quickly, I just realized I introduced myself and you off the top 10 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we have James on tech.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
it's early.
What's going on?
I forgot to introduce you off the rip.
It's early. Don't you have 2 kids?
Did we forget anything else?
About at the top of the show?
Yeah. Did I wreck anything else in this podcast?
No, I think you did pretty good.
Not
Oh,
yet.
okay. All right, not yet.
Give it time.
There's time. There's time.
Yeah, there's time.
Give me time.
So the one drop I want to bring up is Optimistic Scavenger, which in my head is new generous visitor.
Yeah.
1 mana 1/1 in white for a human scout with Eerie. Whenever an enchantment you control ETBs, or whenever you fully unlock a room, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. There was a line that I had seen somebody tweet about, and I was like, oh, this sounds like Magical Christmas Land. And then just clicking through people's channels on Twitch during the early access
It was
event,
on every other game?
I just saw it happen. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you play turn 1, the Optimistic Scavenger. Turn 2, it is followed by Inquisitive Glimmer,
Inquisitive Glimmer.
which is white and a blue for a 2/3 Fox Glimmer.
Right.
It's an enchantment creature. Enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and unlock costs you pay cost 1 less to cast, or 1 less to unlock.
Get a trigger, attack for 2.
Yeah.
Right.
And then turn 3, you play a common room called Grand Entryway for
only
Grand,
one white.
Grand Entryway and Elegant Rotunda. Grand Entryway, 1 and a white, enchantment room. When you unlock this door, you create a 1/1 Glimmer enchantment token. And then Elegant Rotunda, you unlock it and put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So the Glimmer triggers the Optimistic Scavenger, so you're hitting for 2. Then you play the Grand Entryway, which triggers the Scavenger again, which makes a Glimmer token, which triggers the Scavenger again. Then you unlock the Rotunda. All of this is being reduced by the Glimmer.
Yeah, this is your turn 3.
This is turn 3.
You're getting 5 mana on turn 3 because your cost reducer is acting twice.
Right. So we've already hit him for 2. And then playing the Grand Entryway, making the Glimmer, that's another Eerie trigger. Unlocking the Rotunda, that's another Eerie trigger. And then 2 1/1 counters.
So you get 5 +1/+1 counters out of this
On turn 3.
turn 3 Grand Entry into Elegant Rotunda. You already had 4 power that's attacking, so now you've attacked for 2 on turn 2, and you threaten to attack for 9,
9 on turn
3.
Yeah. And 2 uncommons and a common is not that difficult to assemble, right? If there aren't people in this kind of deck
Yeah.
or in this kind of strategy, especially because you can pick up the uncommons early or try to pick them up early and then just assume that you will get this common later. It's not a Writhing Chrysalis. You're probably going to find a couple, maybe even a couple copies of this kind of card down the line.
Yeah, no, it's not uncommon as far as we can see so far. And the pick orders will change, but in the one draft that I saw, the Grand Entry could have lapped, or I think we saw the Fox Glimmer 8th or something. We did lose a game to Optimistic Scavenger. It wasn't like the full out worst possible curve off Optimistic Scavenger, but even if you just play another 1 mana enchantment creature afterwards and then play the rooms fairly, we did run into, I think it was Optimistic Scavenger turn 1, turn 2 something else, and then turn 3 one half of that room, the entryway, and then turn 4 unlock the other half. And it's even without a cost reducer, just going Scavenger, entryway, unlock the other half on turn 3, you're still getting smacked around for there's a 4/4 attacking you on turn 3. It's still pretty scary.
Yeah, you can exclude that enchantment, and then that's just 2 card, turn 3.
Yeah.
You still have 2 bodies that are massive.
1 uncommon, 1 common.
Yeah.
And 3 lands.
Yeah.
And you just need to have 1 plains among them. And so you can mulligan to 5 to get this start.
Mm-hmm. There isn't a shock in the format, right? There's no
There's Scorching Dragonfire at common.
at 2 though.
Yeah, and then I think there's there's definitely black has a 2 mana
Yes.
deal too.
Winter's Intervention.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's an important common. You're going to see it a lot because Manifest is part of this set, so anything that can deal 2 damage is really relevant, or give -2/-2. So Winter's Intervention is 1 and a black per instant. This deals 2 damage to target creature, and you gain 2 life.
Vicious Hunger. Ooh.
But at 1 mana, I don't know if there's anything in black that's targeted or red.
There's the sacrifice and
Yes.
enchantment or creature is it sack an
I think
enchantment
it's
or creature?
enchantment
Just
or creature.
enchantment.
I think it's an enchantment or a creature to exile target creature.
Yeah, the one black, whatever the bone splinters
Final
is.
Sacrifice? It's not called Final Sacrifice.
That would be such a dramatic name to put on
Final
Final
Vengeance.
Vengeance. Still an incredibly dramatic name
Yeah.
to put on a common
Yeah.
that is just this set's version of bone shards or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think maybe this card represents a story moment. The cries of survivor and seller spawn mingled in a single terrible roar as they plunged into the fathomless depths.
Bro, I don't see story spotlight on the card.
They sometimes do that though. Like they'll sometimes put the story spotlight on a common, like Gideon's Sacrifice, like low key unplayable common from War of the Spark is like, oh, this is actually a really important moment in the story, right?
Yeah.
Oh, was it uncommon? Okay.
Uncommon.
All right. But yeah, this is a 1 black removal, and then in white, I think at uncommon there's the destroy target creature or exile target creature manifest dread.
Oh, destroy a creature manifest. It's controller manifest dread.
It's
for
controller
1.
manifest dread for 1. So there's removal at 1, but not shock. Like shock specifically in this format would be really relevant.
Not the removal to like keep you alive.
Yeah.
Right? Without a cost. Like there's no flame blessed bolt or whatever. Like 1 mana. I'm not looking to go to the dome. I mean, if they let me, I will. But there's no like electrostatic bolt. Just like deal with your cheap creature, like your optimistic scavenger, without like letting it run away.
Right. I think, the games I've played so far, if you're trying to get back in, like your opponent has one of these optimistic scavenger, Norin, veteran survival kind of curves that we talked about before, like where their proactive game plan is working in the first 3 turns of the game and you need to stabilize. Winter's Intervention is certainly real. And then also in black, there's an artifact creature that's 1 and a black for a 2/2 lifelink, and it has Delirium. And lifelink creatures, I think, are extra important in this set. There's not a lot of food creation, but you're going to be taking a bunch of damage from these aggressive creature decks. And so you're going to need to eventually get on top of dealing with that at bad mana ratios. And so you're going to need to be able to climb back up in life. Like the lack of any shock or Flame Blessed Bolt that we talked about, any sort of fair exchange of removal for creatures mana-wise, that being absent, I think, requires that your payoff creatures have lifelink or have some way to gain life.
Right.
Because your opponent will usually be able to just keep flunging and throw their resource away to take away your last few life points. But if you can get some bigger, beefier lifelinkers, then you can get back in it. I also want to talk about rooms.
Okay.
So we mentioned the grand entryway. Another one I've run into multiple times. I've played 4 matches of this format or something. Or no, we played a steel too. Okay, so 10 matches of this format. But I've already lost to this rare twice, so I think it's important to point it out. It's like a Phyrexian arena that also makes a demon.
Oh, the Unholy Annex.
Unholy Annex, James. So for 2 and a black, you unlock the room that says at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life. So if you have any demon creature on the table that you control, this draws you a card and makes your opponent lose 2 life at the end of their turn. So it's like a one-sided Howling Mine and a one-sided Sulfuric Vortex. And it even happens before they untap their lands.
And you gain the life.
And you gain life even, yeah. So if you have a demon, this thing is like a crazy great endgame threat.
Yeah, but Nelson, where am I going to find a demon Potentially one that's above rate.
Yeah, can I get like a 6/6 demon for 5 mana? Funny you ask, Wheeler, because for 3 black, you can open the door to the ritual chamber.
Oh.
And when you unlock this door, you create a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying. That's it. No other drawbacks or anything. We just want to give you a big demon. So this card, I think, fits into like any deck that has black mana because it has some aggressive stuff going on. It can trigger Eerie if you just want to play an enchantment early and lose some life to get ahead on cards. But also, yeah, I mean, you get a 6/6 flyer for 5. I hope that, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen if the day comes when getting a 6/6 flyer with no drawback for 5 isn't great and limited. I hope that that's like one of the tenets that they hold on to.
I mean, I guess the drawback is that, you can unsummon it.
Sure.
The bottomless pool.
I'll keep playing sorceries that make a token creature that's a 6/6 flying for 5.
Yeah, I mean, you do it.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there's a common unsummon.
Sure.
Because it's a demon.
Yeah.
Because it's a rare. It's going to kill your opponent.
Also, I just want to make them have it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Winning is better than not losing.
Hey, on the topic of... Nope, can't say that in this podcast. On the topic of things that have killed us, I want to talk about the Swarm Weaver some more.
Yeah, great.
I feel like I didn't get enough talking about this card across North 100 and getting my ass beat by the
James had this in the PPR, didn't he?
Yeah, I also saw other streamers whose names I will not reveal.
Oh,
so
secret streamers. Keep the mystery.
They may be former PPR guests.
Ooh.
Getting their asses kicked by the Swarm Weaver.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, 2 black and a green for a 2/3 legendary artifact creature Scarecrow. When it enters, you make 2 1/1 black-green insect tokens with flying. And then it has Delirium. As long as there are 4 more card types among card types in your graveyard, insects and spiders you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. There are, just looking at this card and what this card does alone, putting out 6-7 worth of stats across 3 bodies with 2 of those bodies having flying and Death Touch is rancid.
It's pretty gross, isn't it? This card seems gross.
So as a whole, this card is it's a whole bunch of pressure. It's shockingly cheap at 4 mana.
Yeah.
And it's just not fun to play against. But you look at it and you're like, okay, well, this is kind of funny because it's Writhing Chrysalid.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit like Writhing Chrysalis.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
that's what it is. Chrysalis.
Chrysalis,
yes.
yeah. So if you are curious, that was the runaway success. The week 2, everyone realizes this is the most important card in MH3 draft. It was a common red, green, and 2 colorless for I think a devoid Eldrazi creature that's a 2/3 reach. But when you cast it, it makes 2
spawn
0/1s. Makes 2 0/1s, and whenever you sacrifice an Eldrazi spawn, it gets 2 or 1.
1.
It gets 1 +1/+1 counter. So 3 bodies. So for blocking, incredible, but also it builds up to a 4/5 reach just on its own. But then if you get like multiples, then they both get the triggers off of all your, and you're playing in a deck with like other Eldrazi spawn.
Yeah.
And other things that your Eldrazi spawn are doing. So it was both like a powerful card on its own and synergistically a great enabler for the kind of red-green Eldrazi small things strategy.
And it seems a little silly to compare common to a rare. But also, it's a Modern Horizons.
It was a Modern Horizons common. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
All bets are off when you
also just the similarities with the 2 cards. It's very close, right?
Right.
It's the same 4 mana for 3 bodies with almost the same power toughness off the rip.
And that's kind of what you mentioned how the Chrysalis synergizes with other cards in your deck. Is that this card shockingly just synergizes with so many things.
Yeah, if you mill
the black-green strategy.
Yeah, if it hits the graveyard, it's 2 card types, 4 Delirium. So if it is in your bin, it's helping.
You got your Brood Spinner. You got like another black-green kind of signpost card. 2/3 reach spider. When it ETBs, you surveil 2.
Oh my god, I hadn't seen the art for this yet.
Oh, the big googly eyes?
Googly eyes spider.
Yeah. 4 mana, tap, sack it, create a number of 1/1 black and green insect tokens with flying, equal number of card types among cards in your graveyard.
That's not even sorcery speed.
Nope. Yep, for some reason. Usually, I feel like usually this has been sorcery speed.
They've been like playing with sorcery speed and not more than usual lately, it seems like. It feels like a ton of stuff now is sorcery speed.
Yeah.
That you might not think had to be.
Yeah, onboard tricks make for pretty bad play experience, especially if you're newer or don't know, or if you're playing Arena on your phone.
Yeah.
And you just like don't read, which feels weird to say, like, well, should you really design around people not reading? And it's like, well, if it's a majority of your player base, like maybe.
It's a weird day that we're in, and yet I completely agree. Most of my Arena experience is on my phone, and I'm not really reading the cards. Or I'm trying, but I'm outside.
But like this card activating at instant speed just makes it super like awkward. It is 6 mana.
6 mana.
For what it's worth.
And tap it.
Yeah.
But
you do get like a pretty relevant body, like an above rate body that sets up your stuff. But this obviously benefits from Swarmweaver as well as the tokens it makes. But even there's the 2 mana 2/2 Death Touch, which already has Death Touch, so it's a little redundant, but becoming a 3/3 means that it actually hurts when you realize you can't just block it.
That 2/2 Death Touch you're talking about is another important piece of the puzzle because it helps the green decks make these aggressive attacks we were talking about in the Boros deck. So can we bring this up, James? It's 1 and a green for a 2/2 Death Touch, and when it attacks, you can give another creature Death Touch. I think it's a larva?
Yeah,
like
it's a bug of sorts.
centipede
Some
or
sort of creepy crawly thing.
Give me a moment.
Yeah,
I'm
no
looking
worries.
for it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, my brain only knows old
Initial
cards.
impressions does not preclude us from remembering the names of some cards.
I blame the culture of Yellow Jacket comics and toys, where we never call a card. I mean, this is probably not exclusive to YJ,
No, it's not.
but
yeah.
definitely, the Flesh Burrower.
No wonder I forgot the name of this card. It absolutely disgusts me.
Yeah,
just even saying it. But I remembered the text correctly, and it's it's an insect, so it gets pumped by the swarm weaver.
Anthropede is another one.
Okay.
The 4 mana, 4/3 ETB. You can discard cards or pay mana to destroy rooms.
Oh,
which is
this
kind
has
of
come up a lot.
interesting.
It's also just like it's got most of its text box taken up with like set mechanic relevant ability,
Right.
and it's just casually a 3/4
It's-
reach for Giant Spider's cost.
Yeah,
They're like burying the lead with how unplayable Giant Spider is these days. It makes me so sad.
Hey, what if your giant spider was bigger and also just blew up cards?
Was a naturalize, yeah.
Yeah, and here, have some flexibility. You can either pay the mana, or if you're a black-green deck that cares about having multiple card types in your graveyard, maybe you could blow up...
It's time for you to get land type into your graveyard and blow up their room.
I think there's another black card as well that fits under the insects. I think. No, I made it up.
Black doesn't have like a 1/1 Death Touch bug in this set, I don't think.
No.
And then some of the other black cards I think you're going to typically see in the Delirium pushing strategy are like other enchantment creatures.
Yeah.
Because there's a few of those. Like black has a 3/2 flash.
Oh.
Enchantment creatures I think is pretty relevant just for that. It also surveils 1/1 attacks. But
Kind of importantly, the Civic Wayfinder of the set.
right.
Which is
let's talk about
another
that.
card I want to talk about being like so wildly 2024.
Yeah.
Let me try to find the name for you, James. It's
But it's 3 mana and it gets landed to play, right?
no, it just goes to your hand.
Oh, okay.
But it does have additional text that makes it extra cool and good. It is called the Spine Seeker Centipede.
Right.
3 mana,
Right.
2/1 insect. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for a basic land card, put into your hand, and then it has Delirium, gets +1/+2 and Vigilance.
And this is another insect too. So if you do have
Yes.
Swarmweaver now, it's a 5/5.
Yeah, I guess this is what
wild.
I'm getting
Death
at,
touch.
is that
Yeah.
like to kind of loop this back to the Swarmweaver as a rare I hate, but also just can't stop thinking about it. It has
Right.
lived rent-free in my mind for like a month now.
I do like how you two have basically just laid out the deck that I played and Ben built at the PPR.
Right.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, I got some solace in knowing that I wasn't the only person losing to this deck, I guess is what I'm saying. But where this really pulls the Swarmweaver really pulls away from the Writhing Chrysalis with this is that like one of the ways that you could beat the Chrysalis is by having a big donkey. right? A big trampler or a flyer or
Right.
or something like something to either trample over the spawn tokens or to fly. Well, flying through the chrysalis is a little tough because of reach, but like if you have a chunky enough flyer, like
At least you're racing at that point or something.
yeah, or you push them to make the sacrifice, and then you can like use your removal spell in a somewhat profitable way,
Right.
where they're not leaving stuff lying around. Basically, the ways that you can kind of navigate around the chrysalis don't work against the Swarm Weaver. If you go big, then you just can lose it to a Death Toucher.
Yeah.
If you try to fly over, well, these bugs have flying, but also they have Death Touch.
Yeah.
Like, if
It's
you
like
deal
playing
with
against the Hornet Queen, but only 4 mana.
yeah, if you deal with the Swarm Weaver, then you're like, oh, good. Now my other cards have Delirium. Like, I have like if early on they deal with the Swarm Weaver or whatever, it's like, okay, well, everything else has Delirium. I still have these flying bugs, and then also I'm a black-green deck that has some recursion available, including like the
room.
the room that's a
Yeah.
Raise Dead.
Yeah, so for 1 black, you get Raise Dead, which weirdly, like Raise Dead has, I think, gone through some weird curve in Magic where it started off, it was like really bad, but people played it. Then like people figured out it was bad. So then for the longest time, WotC was like for more than 10 years, WotC's been like, we'll give you 2 Raised Deads and it'll have some kind of flavor. Or we'll give you Raised Dead and another card.
Yeah.
Or we'll give you Raised Dead and like you can -2/-2 a creature or something. Like they had to like entice us to play Raised Dead. And then now we're at a point where like people have been doing that for long enough that they're just like, what if I could get a cheaper Raised Dead? Like, how cheap could I get Raised Dead if it only gave me Raised Dead? And they're like, brother, do I have a card from beta to show you? So you get a room now that just gives you a creature back from your graveyard to your hand. But then for 4 mana, you can unlock the other half of the room. And it says, whenever a creature leaves your graveyard, you get a 2/2.
I'm looking it up, James. I'm looking it up.
Sorry, James. I think it's common.
Yeah.
What color is it?
Yeah,
Black.
it's
Yeah,
Black.
I'm looking in black, and why don't I see it?
Defiled Crypt and Cadaver Lab.
Thank you.
Right.
Cadaver Lab, pretty good name.
So the Cadaver Lab is the latest in actual Raised Deads that are just Raised Dead. So for 1 black, you can raise the dead. And for 4 mana, you can also make 2/2 black horror enchantment creatures. Oh, they're enchantment creatures. Wild. That is a pretty big rate. Like if you want just the bonus out of this card, it's like, okay, 5 mana Raised Dead. And you get a 2/2.
Well, it's slightly more expensive Gravedigger that triggers Eerie 3 times.
Right, that's fair.
Which is
yeah.
kind of interesting. They've managed to. One of the things too is that they tried to put those Raised Deads. I mean, Raised Dead was always a sorcery, but like players hated Raised Dead because you could just have Gravedigger, right? And that's my favorite monster truck.
There you go.
And
Someday.
then they stopped printing good Gravediggers because they didn't like people looping Gravediggers.
Looping Gravedigger is pretty annoying and was like just a really big part of Pauper for a long time. And still might be? I don't think so, but maybe.
So they went away from that, and like you were saying, the progression of these sorcery Raised Deads, you would get cards like Emergency Weld.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, you technically get a permanent, like you get a 1/1 here, and you get to bring something back from your graveyard for 2 mana.
Yeah.
That's basically like a Gravedigger. That's absurd.
Yes.
But now we have one that is permanent based, which ties not only into like the mechanics of the set where you want to, trigger your Eerie and your unlock or whatever, but also regrowths are primarily permanent based now. So like you can set up these, I mean, calling it a loop is a bit of a stretch, but you get the like
extensive series of value. Sort of
you
like
get a Rube Goldberg kind of like this returns this, which then I can use this to return something else, and then this can return that.
I don't know why I want to think of like fish ladders or something.
Fish ladders.
It's like instead of a loop, it's like a long chain that take you from like a place that was okay to a place that's better now for you.
Fish ladders.
Fish ladder.
Uh-huh.
Because, it like helps you up that stream through all these various little steps.
This feels like I'm sure other people know about fish ladders, but this definitely feels like a very like salmon spawning geographical reference.
Yeah, I live in Victoria, British Columbia, located on Vancouver Island in the Pacific Northwest.
Damn,
so
dude.
some of my metaphors are going to be.
When's the
kind of
last time
regional.
you went to Goldstream?
Like a week or two. I've been to Goldstream pretty recently. I have small children. Goldstream Park, located near Victoria. Not as near as Ice Cream Mountain, though. I just had to see if James is still awake.
Oh, I'm still awake.
Ice Cream Mountain.
Ice cream. It's the little ice cream hut just before you get to the Goldstream turnoff.
You're like driving out of town.
Yeah.
There's a little ice cream place just before the Goldstream Park starts.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I vaguely remember.
And it's
this.
called Ice Cream
Mountain is like the border of Goldstream and
I
Langford.
think I conflated it with that ice cream place that's near the driving range. Not that's the ultimate James.
Yeah, there you go.
Just like,
Golf and
yeah, exactly.
what?
Wee.
What are we doing?
Hey, I got an idea for a pre-record.
Nice. Okay, so sorry, yeah.
Back to Bloomberg.
Magic cards.
Oh,
We
I
haven't
mean,
talked. There's a color we haven't talked about, and it's because I tried to draft that color, and I don't know how to stay alive. Like it just felt like everything that we tried was too slow.
Red? Blue?
No, blue.
Blue?
Well, we did mention the white blue cost reducer.
Yeah.
But we were like, here's a blue contribution to like an entirely white based aggro strategy. But like I haven't really seen. I don't know which blue cards you're supposed to put in your deck to be like, okay, I'll survive till turn 6 for sure.
Well, there's the breeding champion kind of card, the tunnel surveyor.
Tunnel surveyor. So this is a common. It's a human. 2 and a blue for a 2/2, and when it enters, you make a white 1/1 glimmer enchantment creature. And yeah, whenever my opponents have played this so far, it triggers their Eerie, and I take extra damage. And whenever I've played it, I'm trying to block their creatures, but on their turn, they turn from being a 2/2 and a 1/1 into a 3/3 and a 4/4.
Right.
Yeah.
There's Stalked Researcher.
Okay, this one I haven't seen. I don't think.
1 and a green for a 3/3 defender that has Eerie. It can attack as though it didn't have defender.
Right.
I feel like these
The
cards.
piranhas seem important. This one's probably more key than I thought.
They sorry, my brain heard key and was like unlock the room.
Oh,
get
yeah,
it?
get it.
Hurt.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, these cards, I feel like I always look at them and go like, damn, I wish I could draft around this deck. And then you go to twitter.com and you just see like the Moto grinders then they post pics of like decks with like 5 of them.
Oh.
And you're just like, oh, you can do this. I'm just bad. Like, oh, okay. I get you. And like, I can't, make a judgment on this card in this format. I haven't played this deck yet, and I didn't really see it, but like, between this card and the Bring a Glimmer and the bottomless pool and the meat locker, the 2 rooms, or not, maybe not just the 2
Now
rooms.
the bottomless pool. Let's talk about this because isn't that one? It's just 1 blue for surveil 2.
No, that's
Okay.
the one that begins with U. I forget its
this
name.
one is an unsummon.
Yeah,
Okay,
so the bottomless pool is 1 blue enchantment room unsummon. You return a creature to target opponent's. You unlock it and you return the thing to hand.
A creature,
and
yeah.
it doesn't have to target an opponent's thing, which is kind of cool. You might
Right.
hit setups with that, and then it turns into locker room for 5 mana. That says whenever one or more creatures you control deal damage to a player, you draw a card.
So this one's uncommon. There's another common blue room, which because one of the sides costs 1 blue, I thought maybe that there wasn't an unsummoned one.
The
as
Surveil
well.
2 one. Right?
Yeah, the Surveil 2 one, and then on the other half of that, I think you also get something that doesn't really affect the board. But this one's relevant. So if you can get the blue bottomless pool, thank you. The underwater tunnel lets you Surveil 2. And for 4, oh no, this is for 4, you get a 3/3. For 3 in blue, the slimy aquarium, when you unlock this door, manifest a creature, or manifest dread, then put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So this one's common and a lot more fair.
Why does this have a second part? Like, what does the Surveil do for this card?
I think it just lets you get an enchantment on the board for 1 mana or an Eerie trigger when you unlock it for 1 mana. I think they were like, we want to give blue a Manifest Dread enchantment that's very fairly costed.
I guess like you might
generous that's unfairly costed, whatever you want to say. Yeah, like
can help Delirium, I guess.
for sure. Yeah.
But Meat Locker is the other one.
common one. Now, this one also affects the board.
Yeah, this one, I mean, it's a little expensive for what you're getting, but
Yeah.
the 3-mana side, the Meat Locker side, is when you unlock this door, you tap up to one creature and put 2 stun counters on it. I mean, that's not nothing, and like locking something out for the initial combat, then the next turn, and then the next turn when you're turning on your 2-mana 3/3 and I guess trying to survive. The other side is 5-mana draw 3 cards, discard a card.
Yeah.
Which is like a thing that we've had before.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not quite Jace's Ingenuity, but discarding a card in this format's pretty good most of the time. Like, get your Delirium online.
Yeah. So I'd be curious if this deck with the 2-mana 3/3 defender that can now attack is like something that you can do in blue where, obviously defensively a 2-mana 3/3 is not the worst.
Yeah, the Moat Piranhas series is like often that's the answer that we're looking for. To the question, how do you play some cards in blue that let you survive through like a really aggressive opponent's deck?
Yeah.
And so this one's got built in that like these Moat Piranhas just turn into Watch Wolves off an Eerie trigger. So they might be the linchpin that we're looking for. Just speaking about more cards that I've been really impressed with, Friendly Ghost in white.
Oh yeah,
this card's fine in the aggro decks, but also could just be like in a more mid-rangey or long game deck and be a real player. 3 and a white for a 2/4 flying spirit. With when Friendly Ghost enters, target creature gets +2/+4 until end of turn, which is a really weird looking pump. But like, it's about as valuable as +3/+3. It's not quite as much damage, but like your toughness is so big that your opponent's block always sucks.
Yeah, it's not dying.
Yeah, it's sort of like imagine if it said +2/+0 Death Touch and Indestructible. Like that's kind of what +4 means in terms of the board. Like your creature that you're pumping is going to get in, and they're going to chump block it if they can, probably. If they can't, okay, you got in for 2 extra. But it's also just a 2/4 flying for 4, like an Azure Drake or whatever, so it plays really well defensively. Like even if you completely miss on the creature, it's Giant Spider, baby. I'm always singing the praises of this card in terms of its ability to like help keep you alive in greedy mana-based decks. So this does that. But I don't know. We had someone bounce one of these once against us, and we were like, oh, that just feels like cheating. I just get to rebuy the trigger, which is like, I don't know, a third of the value of this card or something.
I definitely did not read this card when I first played it. I thought it gave +2/+2.
Okay,
and I was like, that's pretty good. And then it gave +2/+4. I'm like,
honestly, +2/+2 is pretty good.
Yeah.
+2/+4 is a weird, like, it's on a few different cards, but it's like a rare.
It has appeared on white pump spells.
Yeah.
Like there's exactly a white pump spell that gives a creature +2/+4 from like Origins, or
There might be a green one that like untaps it and gives it +2/+4 as well, like some expensive trick.
Yeah.
But it's weird looking, right? Usually when you see a pump, it's +1/+1. But yeah, this kind of hilarious giant booty pump allows for, funny looking but very good for you attacks. So I've been very impressed with this card. In red, there's a room that's 4 damage to a creature.
Yeah.
For 2 and a red.
Glassworks, I want to say.
Yeah, and so this is going to be really often appearing in those. What's the 1-drop that gives the +1/+1 counter again?
Oh yeah, the Opportunist.
Yeah, the Scavenger decks are going to love this because you get an enchantment enter, and you get a unlock both rooms trigger off all of these room enchantments, right? So this is for 2 and a red. When you unlock this door, it deals 4 damage to target creature and opponent controls. And then what all these decks that have like tons of low drops love is some way to finish the game. So for 4 and a red, if you unlock the Shattered Yard at the beginning of your end step, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So like not really impressive for the mana, but it fills that need of like, okay, I played a bunch of things. Now my opponent's got bigger creatures than me, and one of them has lifelink, so attacking sucks, but you can like, just spend 5 mana and be like, okay, 3-turn clock,
Can have anything to help close out the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because sometimes that happens with the aggressive decks of you You puke all your stuff out on the board. They do the same. You
Yeah.
trade, and you're like, well, now what?
Yeah, and you get them to 2, but they have a Nighthawk.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well,
Oh,
did I win? I don't know,
am
right?
am I okay?
Am I okay? Yeah, we in our sealed that Graham and I played, we had the mythic rare 2 and a red spirit 3/3
Oh,
haste.
Screaming Nemesis.
We had the screaming nemesis, and the reason I want to talk about it is, by the way, sorry, this is a 3/3 haste spirit at mythic that has whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. So cool, Boros Reckoner kind of slash
Keep going.
that 2/2 from Shadowmoor that has the can't gain life clause.
Keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, so we also had 2 copies of Pyroclasm in our
Yeah,
deck.
Uncommon.
Yeah, which is back. Pyroclasm, like red isn't necessarily the color that needs help having options to deal with aggressive creatures, but it has the best one. It's 1 and a red for a sorcery and this deals 2 damage to each creature. Originally printed in Ice Age, Pyroclasm is one of the kind of like core magic concepts. It's usually the cheapest sweeper that gets any attention. Red and maybe once ever black. No, I think just red can deal 1 damage to all the creatures for 1 mana as well, but that's not usually very popular.
Yeah. There's the black one.
Is there a black -1/-1 to everything for 1 black?
Nausea is the -1/-1.
Oh, it's 2 mana though, right?
That's 2 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so about as cheap as you can get for a sweeper, other than
Yeah.
like Miracling Terminus. So important constructed card, but also in limited, like a fantastic answer to the world of Manifest Dreads and like powerful 1 and 2 drops, all of whom will die unless they've been like set up correctly, like the Scavenger. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I've been checking to
about
see
Nemesis or what?
about Screaming Nemesis.
Yeah.
Checking to see if we can truly live our Boros Reckoner dreams, and we can. James, get ready to put some bad commons into.
Oh no!
into
Are we setting up the Infi loop? Are we playing? Can we play like tricks are for kids or whatever?
Given to violence is 1 and a black for an instant that says target creature gains +2/+2 and lifelink until end of turn. So we target our Screaming
So
Nemesis.
that's the Azorius charm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we combined it with there's a green pump spell
That gives death touch and indestructible.
Horrid Vigor.
Horrid Vigor, yeah.
1 in a green instant. Target creature gains death touch and indestructible until end of turn. Now this is 3 cards. Now this is using a mythic rare. But that's
It's
okay.
3 colors, but that's okay.
That's okay. You can live the dream. You can live the dream.
Now you've got indestructible
Yep.
and lifelink.
Yep. And
And then
the Nemesis deals the damage to itself.
Right.
Which then triggers the Nemesis.
Yep.
And you gain 3 life.
Yep.
And then
5 life.
5 life.
Yeah.
Which is relevant because we're about to go infinite. You got to make sure what we're going infinite
It's
and what
easier to
increment.
count up by 5.
Yes, exactly. And so you just gain infinite life.
Yeah, and then you dome them for 5 when the loop ends.
Magic is so easy.
It does say if a player is dealt. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
So you get to first you gain infinite life by targeting itself over and over again.
And if
It
that's
needs
not
to
enough-
take damage first. You do also need to provide a way.
Oh,
so
I
you might
can
need a
figure
fourth
out a
card.
way.
A fourth
Yeah,
card to
fourth
Scorching
card.
Dragonfire, your own Screaming Nemesis. It deals that much damage. So any way to deal any amount of damage to this thing after you've played your other 2 charms, your Horrid Vigor charm and your Lifelink +2/+2 charm in black, and then it just keeps targeting itself over and over again while your life total goes up, and then eventually you target your opponent.
That's
once.
right, folks. I want you at home to ruin your draft by trying to build this combo.
I mean, you're in Jund, and all these cards are super playable. Like that Horrid Vigor, that's like the cleanest looking green Doomblade we've seen that isn't like a punch of some kind.
Yeah, that card
card
is
sweet. Like
kind of annoying.
Like those 2 abilities on a card. I don't even know if we've seen those 2 abilities on a
Death
card
touch and indestructible
on a card for less than 2 or less than 3 mana before. Like I think I've seen a trick that has these 2, or like you can choose multiple.
You
modes.
usually get one or the other. They like to
Yeah.
pair indestructible with lifelink
Yes.
a lot,
Yeah.
or indestructible with death touch. You know, it keeps it in the black color pie.
Yeah.
There, this is one's a green one.
Yeah, this one's green.
Yeah,
And green often has an indestructible trick, but not often indestructible with death touch.
yeah.
Sorry if there is already a trick in green that does this. Let us know in the comments, because remembering all of the like 23rd cards from every limited format, that's really That's deep.
I stopped
That's where
after,
the experts.
after Rush of Vitality, and I stopped.
Yeah.
I don't need to learn anymore.
Rush of Vitality is just the
That's
best one ever. Yeah.
the Kaladesh one, +1/+0 indestructible lifelink.
Right.
That one, I remember that one.
Yeah, and that's only 1 in a black or something, right? Yeah.
Ooh, you blocked my thriving rats with your thriving rhino. Big mistake.
That's funny because this format, not for when this was Ether Revolt. All I ever cared about anymore in terms of combat tricks was skullduggery.
Oh yeah.
Like as soon as I met skullduggery, and skullduggery was originally printed in Ixalan before Kaladesh, right?
Well, Kaladesh came before Ixalan.
Oh, okay. So maybe it was first in Ether Revolt. Maybe that was the first printing of skullduggery. I feel like there was another one that was the same before this one came out. But this one was only 1 black mana for an instant that can give one creature +1/+1 and another creature -1/-1, right?
Yes.
I think that was in Ether Revolt. No, I'm thinking of the wrong card. It was 2 mana.
'Cause-
In Ether Revolt, it cost 2 mana as well.
Oh.
But it was a counter. It put a counter on one of your creatures and
Oh,
shrunk
yeah,
another creature.
yeah. Okay.
But then they made it Skullduggery in Ixalan for only 1 mana. But even when it was in Ether Revolt, the ability to change 2 creatures' power and toughnesses, that for me is like similarly to your trick that was just on the screen. That was like the high water mark of like getting prepared to be completely blown out
Yeah.
in combat in limited.
Yeah.
For 2 mana, if I can make my creature bigger and your creature smaller, now whenever I'm attacking, you need to like do algebra to figure out if you're going to block more than one creature. Like if you block
So
2
much
creatures, it's like, well, can they just kill both my creatures for 2 mana and 1 card? Because if I set that up, I'm going to regret that decision. I'd probably rather just take lethal damage.
Sick.
Yeah.
Hey, we
What's
have
up?
we have like 10 minutes
Yeah.
left. Can we talk about Duskmourn cards in formats other than limited?
Hell yeah. Initial impressions for Duskmourn in other formats.
Wow. I mean, I do have one Canadian Highlander throwaway that I want to talk. I mean, this feels like an appropriate
Yeah,
place to do
absolutely.
it. And
It's free
appropriate
time
to-
class. Hey, the bell's going to go in 10 minutes. You can talk amongst yourselves however you want.
Cameron's not here. We can run wild. So I've been playing a Rug Scape Shift extra turns deck.
Yes, I saw that.
Splashes black for Demonic Tutor. And the deck feels incredible.
Nice.
Like, I think that it is like, I'm still working on it, but I'm like, oh, this is like can consistently take down tournaments level deck.
Sweet. Okay.
I'm convinced.
I'm looking forward to seeing your most recent list.
And a card that I was playing in it that I tried out as soon as it got previewed and like, proxied it up and started jamming with it is the Green Overlord. Overlord of
Green impending creature, James. There's
James?
5 cards with impending, and only one of them is green. Overlord of the Hauntwoods. Thank
Yes.
you, James.
Overlord of the Hauntwoods. 3 green for a 6/5 enchantment creature avatar horror with impending 4 for 1 green. If you don't know what impending is, you cast a spell for the impending cost. It enters with n number of time counters and isn't a creature until the last one is removed. It's just an enchantment, and you remove the counters at your end step. Whenever it enters or attacks, you create a tapped colorless land token named Everywhere that is every basic land type.
Nice.
This card in that Scape Shift deck
Yeah.
rules. I thought I would be like, I wanted to try it out. And I'm like, this is just going to be too slow, right?
Well, usually you're playing Rampant Growth and Natural Order and 3 visits, right?
So I'm on the 3 visits in Nature's Lore.
okay, maybe not Rampant Growth, but
Yeah.
the 1 mana one that has Suspend.
Search for Tomorrow.
Yeah, so like,
Yeah.
but usually your cards that go get lands end at 2 mana, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You're not really on Kodama's Reach
Yeah.
or Flare of Cultivation.
Yeah,
or
it's
whatever.
usually a little too slow.
But I found this card to be pretty great. The making a land of every type is huge
Okay.
for Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah, I thought maybe you
for
mentioned that.
fixing your mana just in general.
Sure.
As well, it like really helps your sequencing earlier so that you can make sure that you have enough mountains in your deck
Right.
for when you do eventually Scape Shift.
Mm-hmm.
And then this thing just people forget about it.
Right.
And then it hits when it becomes a creature, you are also a deck that has counter magic.
Yeah.
So it often becomes a more vulnerable card when you have the means to protect it, and does it at a time where, on your end step, they're able to kill it or
Yeah,
whatever.
they have a turn. The way impending works is like you take the counter off at your end step. So your opponent always gets sorcery speed options for interaction. Like if their plan is Dreadbore for this creature, it works.
Right. But I forgot just how big a 6/5 is.
Right.
Like this thing out-muscling like seasoned Dungeoneers and just like being able to crunch in against like Knight of the Reliquaries and stuff has been really impressive to me.
I do find with the Rugscape Shift deck that like you are somewhat regularly like in games you could win where the board is empty. Like you've managed to just toe to toe, 1-for-1 all their stuff. So any card that you can add to that deck, like Clothis, that's like, okay, this is here for mana.
Yes.
Like this is a manalith. That's why we included it in the deck. But some games I could just keep one-for-1ing you and kill you with the Clothis trigger.
Right. They both this and Clothis share that quality of inevitability.
Yeah.
And of like they're both great at obfuscating how I'm actually going to kill you.
Right.
Because you need to deal with these cards or else I'm just going to kill you with them.
Yeah.
But when you expend enough resources to do so, I just get to scape shift.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable. Like if you had to tap out to kill this on your turn, now I know I can go for the scape shift.
Speaking
infinite
of
turn loop or whatever.
Speaking of turns, yes, infinite turns. So this deck also plays all these time walks, right? Like you're on the 3/5 mana time walks, time walk itself proper, as well as Temporal Mastery and Nexus of Fate.
Yeah.
And so the extra turn cards work really well with
Impending.
Magic the Gathering, but especially Impending.
Right.
Right.
Impending kind of another, maybe not quite the power level of, but similar to Sylvan Library or the One Ring triggers where it's like no mana on your turn, something gets better for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is in addition to those turn cards, like getting more out of your air quote explores, right? Like sometimes you rock the 5 mana temporal manipulation just to like
Just to
draw a
dig.
card,
Yeah.
untap, lets you develop your mana a little bit more.
Yeah, all those 5 mana time warps, it's like, well, this one's a mulligan. Like, I'm just going to throw it out and get another card and untap all my resources. And then every card you can play, like Clothis, this, Sylvan Library, any Planeswalker.
One Ring, Planeswalkers.
Yeah, all those cards just say, like, okay, your decision to do that is always supported by us.
Yeah.
Like, we just do something for you
Yeah.
that makes resetting and taking another turn okay.
Yeah. This is a card where I was a little like I was excited initially, but then also kind of, hesitant because it is just kind of a big donkey. Feels like a card that we may steer people away from due to its lack of like trample or whatever.
Yeah, like the advantage of you can play this as a mana rock and then later you get something.
Yeah.
I would have felt like certainly on my first pass of this card, like it's cool that you make token lands and I like that and I like that they're every land type, but 3 mana is too much to pay for that first one.
Yeah.
So I would say like maybe don't. But it's interesting that in the turns deck, it seems like it earns its spot. By being this
the
flexible
3
thing.
to 5 drop gets a lot more relevant with the time wonks.
Yeah.
Which is nice, and because again, like we said, you're not playing the Kodama's Reaches or whatnot. But you would play something like this and Clothis or Uro, cards that are going to progress your mana base.
Uro is in there actually.
While also providing, like, I'm not calling
God,
this
is
card
this Uro?
Uro, but it does. The play pattern was not dissimilar. It was not dissimilar.
Like if Uro had Impending 4 instead of Exile 4 cards or 5 cards, like that's pretty similar. Like you have to pay the mana for Uro again.
Yeah. So this card, pretty impressive.
I guess Uro does have going for it that you can threaten to keep exiling stuff from your bin, and I have played games of Canadian Halander where the Uro comes down like 3 or 4 times, but like usually it just comes back once. If they can afford to spend 4 to bring it back, it's usually like, well, if I don't have a kill spell for that again, the game's over.
Yeah, to con the Discord rage mongers, this is not Uro. However,
Uro.
the play patterns of this card can resemble some of the play patterns of Uro. The only other thing that I want to talk about, because I got to see this in action, is not Canadian Highlander, is in Standard, is the Enduring Vitality, I want to say.
White,
no, that's it. Innocence.
oh,
there
the
we go.
green,
Thank you, James.
Green
got it in
enduring
one.
creature.
So, yeah, 1 green for 3/3 enchantment creature Elk Glimmer with Vigilance, and creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color.
Always love a Joiner Adept.
And when it dies, if it was a creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control, and now it's an enchantment and not a creature. So I saw a combo deck with this card. It uses this card and Storm Splitter from Bloomburrow. The
okay.
3 and a red for a 1/4 haste. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you make a copy of the Storm Splitter.
Oh, God.
And you sack that copy of end of turn. So with Enduring Vitality curving into Storm Splitter, that means all your Storm Splitters are going to be able to tap and
For
add
mana.
mana.
With haste.
And so all you need to do is just cast spells, because the exponential growth of your Storm Splitters is just going to kill them a lot quicker than you'd think.
Right.
And the versions that I saw played Analyze the Pollen,
Right.
the one green
mana.
sorcery that has Collect Evidence 8. It's from MKM. You may collect Evidence 8, and you search your library for a basic land, but if evidence is collected, you search your library for a creature or a land card instead. Reveal that card, put it in your hand. So this lets you find both the Storm Splitter and the Enduring Vitality. And you got to collect Evidence 8, which sounds a little weird, but also you have to take into mind that we're playing a red-green deck that wants to play a bunch of spells.
Okay.
And so the spells that they play are Cash Grab from Bloomburrow, the like 2 mana mill 4 return a permanent, which feeds into your collect evidence,
Right.
lets you find your Vitality or your Storm Splitter, as well as hybrid cards from what's it called, MKM,
Okay, the split cards.
the split cards, yes,
Right.
because there's a black-green split card that says like exile card, if it's a creature, gain a life, and then
Draw
you
a
get to
card,
draw a
so-
card.
Yeah.
And then the other half costs 6
Yes.
mana.
That was a classic from the MKM format.
Yeah.
I was just playing the 2 mana exile card to cycle so that your like 4 mana creature with collect evidence 6
Yes.
would always hit.
Yeah, so
Whatever.
it just plays into the collect evidence immediately.
Okay.
Which I think is pretty neat that you have this goofy combo deck that uses cards truly from like every set,
Right.
but only became, something that could be a bit more smooth, a bit of a smooth operator, not to quote Sade on
Once they-
TapTapConcede. But like, yeah, the Enduring Vitality really enables the like blowout potential of this, as well as the lands. Like, we haven't even talked about the lands.
James, could I see Storm Splitter from Bloomburrow? This is a red creature that also is a key part of this combo.
It's an otter.
It's an otter, and I want to read the templating on the ability. So 3 and a red for a 1/4 haste otter wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, make a token that's a copy of this, exile it to being
Right.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so as long as you can keep kind of cycling, you can tap these hasty 1/4s for mana.
Yep.
But then the copies also make more copies.
Yes.
So that exponential growth wheeler, Matt, is just that every spell you cast on your turn when you have Storm Splitter out makes twice as many Storm Splitters as the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
So, like...
After like 4 spells,
Yeah.
they're dead.
Yeah, so you make one spell, now you have 2 otters. You make a second spell, and now you have 4 otters. You make a third spell, and now you have 8 otters. And if you cast a 4th spell, you're making 16 otters.
Yeah.
That's usually your opponent's life total.
Yeah, and they play Might of the Meek, the 1 mana red draw card, gives +1/+0. If you have a
Trample
mouse,
if a mouse.
it gains trample, but you're mostly in it for the draw spell.
So ponder.
Yeah. You can play it with the new what is it called? Oh, yes, this was important. Also from Duskmourn, the Say Its Name.
Say its name from
The-
Duskmourn.
1 and a green for a sorcery. You mill 3 cards, and then you can return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand.
Another cash grab.
But even better, this is grapple with the past, which
Okay.
typically, and this pisses me off. I know we're basically done here, but all their, give me the grapple with the past. Give me the like mill cards and then return anything.
Oh, I see.
Recently, we've seen mill cards
Right.
return
Return
something
you milled.
from the mill.
Yeah, I also find that templating annoying. And
Yeah.
I don't get why it's important. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously weaker, so maybe there's like a power level dial that they're
Yeah,
playing
it's
with.
got
But
to
the
be.
quality of life of mill cards and get something back from the cards you milled, I find noticeably worse. Like,
Yes.
the digital clients obviously do it for you, so it's not that big a deal. But I don't know, it also kind of feels dirty to like play this card when you have something that you want back from your bin.
Mhm.
Like, I played a card. Let me get a card back from my graveyard.
Also worth noting that this has the exile this card and 2 other cards named say its name from your graveyard, and you get to tutor up from anywhere, basically. Altanak, the Thrice Called. 5 green for a 9/9 legendary insect beast with trample. When it becomes a spell, target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you draw a card. Then you can pay 1 and a green, discard it to return target land from your graveyard to play tapped. Also kind of relevant. I mean, you only have
They jam one of this in the deck though, probably. Right?
Yeah,
If they're playing
yeah.
for say its name, hey.
And like having 1 copy, there are spots where this lets you just get a Storm Splitter out on turn 2 or turn 3.
Oh, because
right?
this is your rampant growth or whatever.
Yeah, you can play like a Surveil land, put something in the
Right.
bin, untap, and then bring it back.
Wow. Yeah, this card's actually pretty relevant for the discard ability too, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, that's a cool little deck that I saw in Standard. I saw a couple of people playing it and tweeting about
Yeah,
it.
I'd be interested to try it out.
Yeah,
Actually.
looked pretty neat.
If you'd like to try out some standard decks, head on over to cardkingdom.com/LRR. That affiliate link lets them know we sent you, and you can buy any of the singles that we just mentioned and play your own version of Paper Standard. Or if you want some sealed product, you can get any of the sealed product that they have on their website if you're in the US, or if you're outside of the US, you just have to wait until the we're currently printing it window is over. You might be able to get some stuff from
Your
Standard.
hands are tied. You got to
Yeah.
buy a box of Champions of Kamigawa.
It's too bad, really, because you just have to buy whatever packs they have left of Oath of the Gatewatch, the best set that's ever been printed in Magic. Hey, and if you like what we do and the Discord that we sow among the friends that we are here, and you want to support directly us, please head on over to patreon.com/loading-ready-run. You can help us keep the lights on and our bellies full of warm food and keep us dry from the rain. Any amount that you want per month. I've been Nelson. I was joined by Wheeler.
Yeah.
James is on tech.
That was me.
Heather gets these out. Did I forget anything?
No.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Okay, bye.